everyone. Thanks for listening to China Paradigm. I am today with Thomas Meyer. Thomas, you are the co-founder, actually, and I would like to know more about it, actually, of Mobile Law Group, which is, if I read correctly on LinkedIn, a full-service mobile development studio with a focus on branded apps and games. Set up in 2009, you are in Shanghai, Hangzhou, and Changsha, so that's for China, and also Singapore. You are about 50 people now, as far as I understand, and you worked on more than 80 products. And actually, your website is full of information about all the cases you have worked on. I would have a lot of questions on them, and also a lot of information on how you develop them. So thank you very much for being with me and us, actually, and the listeners.
So thank you, Matthieu, for welcoming me. That's very nice to be there, and also to have the opportunity to share, hopefully, some interesting information.
To give an idea to the people listening to us about the size of the company, it could be in terms of revenue, size of the number of people in the team, could be number of clients, but to give an idea of the size of the company currently.
Yes, so the company is today about 50 people, 48 to be exact, with a couple of people joining soon, so still 50, and it's been a very stable number for a few years now. It's which is great because we can focus on projects and not so much on growing teams and skill sets. From a revenue perspective, we're very happy, but I'd rather not give too many specifics for various reasons. China being a pretty competitive market, if that's all right.
In terms of clients, so you worked on, it's written on LinkedIn, 80 projects. You say a bit more, between 80 to 100, right?
Yeah. So I think we've done probably over the course of the 9 years, about close to 100 projects. So that's roughly around 20 projects per year. And they are fairly large projects. They are mobile platform projects.
Yeah, that's what I saw. If we dig a little bit on some of your products, I saw that for GLL, you created a marketplace for their real estate.
Yeah, GLL was a fantastic story also. They basically, it's their online marketplace. So they have a China mobile first website, and that website has been going across the region at the moment, and replicating various versions in Australia, New Zealand, India, Singapore, Japan, Korea, and so on. So it's a typical story for a China first that's now spreading around the world, just because China is actually quite advanced these days in terms of mobile technologies, mobile platforms, and mobile experiences. And it's also a big business market. It's a major market. So we see clients more and more adopting this China-first strategy, international clients I'm talking about.
And you are developing for the other countries, for Singapore, Australia, and the other countries?
I would say it's more marginal, but it happens more by accident because of the nature of our clientele or the clients. They are themselves international. So most of them really want us to stay focused on the China market, and that makes a lot of sense. But in some cases, such as GLL, spreading across the region can become often an option.
For people listening, GLL is Jones Long LaSalle. So They have been doing real estate for decades. It's a major real estate company in the world, and I didn't know they were doing renting actually, and the marketplace for that I didn't know, but.
Yeah, you need GLL when you need to find a very fancy office for your staff, and they serve mostly MNCs and large clients looking for office and commercial space.
Well, I'm surprised actually. My question was, you are China focused, you're based in China, you seem to be very centered on China, you are office in Changsha and Hangzhou. I guess that shows how centered you are on China. And you are actually following clients to go to Australia and Singapore. But I feel, as far as I understand, by being in China for 10 years, China is very specific. And very often, you don't work with the same players, the same agencies. Or when you go out of China, you have worked on this case for the entire marketplace.
Yeah, I think Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think some agencies networks are international ones, and so they have the benefits of having offices in markets all around the world, but they may not have the specific skill sets that we have from a design and development and technology perspective. And I think we are in this sweet spot where we understand the China market and we can deliver on the China market, but we also are an international team. So we can bring whatever we learn in China in other relevant markets. And in the global economy we live in today, that could potentially mean a much wider region. But I have to say, though, that most of our work is still very focused today on China scenarios and China challenges.
Talking about what you've just said, I think it's very interesting for everyone who is living in China or who is in connection with China. You say that there is innovation in China, basically, that's what you say, and that Absolutely. We can leverage innovation in China to go global, to adapt it actually to the world instead of the reverse we saw like 10 years ago. You're in China long enough to see the change. Could you elaborate more on a couple of cases where you have seen an innovation which is Chinese or made in China? I'm thinking about QR code, of course, but linked to mobile in your industry with your cases that you have been able to leverage. The fact that it's a very mobile-first industry, mobile-first economy, in China. I don't know. If you have a couple of cases, I think it would be very interesting to know.
Sure. So actually, in my case, I've been a mobile specialist, a mobile innovation specialist for 17 years. I started in Japan. And when I was in Japan, working for a mobile operator there, I discovered already in 1999 QR codes, mobile wallets, and color screen phones with rich media content. We could do a lot of things with that. And of course, it was on a totally different sets of technologies, different phones, Japanese phones. And I can't really say that QR codes were invented in China, but I can definitely say that adoption and their usage and what people do, what companies do also with those is probably where the innovation really lies and where you can really talk about China first. So through both the scale of the market and the inventivity of the businesses involved here, because they're working from a white sheet, basically. So, they look at their daily problems to solve, and they look at it differently from a different angle. The innovation is really there. They haven't invented QR codes, but they use QR codes more and better than pretty much anyone else on the planet.
Do you have other cases that you feel China has been first to use? So still an innovation to adopt, to use something that other countries?
I can think of 100 things, but perhaps one that would be the most interesting for everyone here is mobile payments. You just have to look at the sheer size of peer-to-peer, online to offline, or mobile commerce payments, wherever it comes from. China is really leading the way, and in terms of numbers, I mean, just comparing China versus the US totally dwarfs the US when you look at those graphs, if you compare to China. So you see pretty big transactions happening over mobile year on year and growing super fast in China. And in the US, it's kind of like still stagnant in comparison to that. So it's very interesting from that perspective, and it's not a unimportant point to look at, because mobile payments define transactions, define business, and they help to define experiences and customers and shoppers' experiences in very different ways than what happens today in the rest of the world. So social commerce in particular on platforms such as WeChat is what our clients and our teams are thriving on and working with, and for quite a few years now, and for about 4 or 5 years. And it's just amazing what can be done with social commerce and social CRM, and how it can help really our clients develop their business.
When you're talking about social commerce and social CRM, is it about selling through social networks? Is it creating, as you said, apps interaction on social networks. What is it exactly what you call social commerce? Is it to leverage KOL to sell social marketing?
Yeah, no, it's always something that is super clear and that everyone understands when they live in China, but something that nobody quite understands when they live outside of China, because the other social networks such as Facebook, Instagram, and the others, Line, Kakao, are not really geared the same way as WeChat is in China. So let me just summarize it this way by explaining that WeChat in China, it's a portal of services. It's not just a social network. It's my mobile wallet. It's my portal of services. I buy my train ticket through WeChat. I buy my groceries through WeChat. And the reason really is that WeChat has built an app that's actually an operating system for building services on top. So as a mobile design and development studio, what we see is clients not asking us anymore to build native apps, iOS or Android apps. They ask us for building WeChat mini programs. And for us, it simplifies life a lot because WeChat provides us all these APIs, all these tools that enables us to build really quickly very, very smart mobile services that on top of that can be deployed and shared really easily over social networks. So if you're doing the right thing, if you're building the right services or selling the right product over WeChat, then it's spread like fire because of word of mouth, because of the shareability of mini programs over a social network. It's a bit like if Facebook wanted to become a operating system where we could build applications to do pretty much anything. It kind of did that in the desktop days with, you might remember the Facebook apps, but it missed totally the boat of mobile. As soon as the mobile app of Facebook appeared, all of these applications disappeared. And at the same time, WeChat, which was, of course, protected in the Chinese market, it's a very protected market as far as the internet comes, is concerned. WeChat developed a mobile wallet, developed APIs to enable anybody in a very open way, to open to anybody to develop any services that they'd like. And it kept doing that year on year on year, improving their platform at super fast speed. So from this side, being in China, when we look at Facebook, we're finding them pretty slow at developing the right features and the right tools to become something like WeChat. So now when we meet international clients and have to explain to them what WeChat means in China, it's quite difficult. It takes a little while for them to download the app, to live in China. That's really what you have to do to interact with people and to really understand what it means from a customer perspective, from a user perspective, to use WeChat and to do things on WeChat.
So when you're talking about social commerce, it's mainly basically leverage an app, a social app, and going through this app to sell and to use their payment system and so on. That's what you call mainly social commerce. Because I guess in the West, when you talk about social commerce, they will think about KOLs, they will think about how to drive traffic to your website, and the transaction will be on your website on the platform like Amazon, whatever.
Correct. So I think if you compare to Facebook and Amazon and other platforms, WeChat functions very differently. I think it's fair to say that they haven't been trying to be a marketing, media, promotion platform. They've actually tried to preserve privacy for their users from the start. But they've developed a lot of functions and features that enable users to interact with offline. Scanning QR codes was one thing we're talking about. Paying for their food, their restaurants, splitting their bills, collecting coupons that they could show at the stores, but also buying directly through WeChat. So if I go to a fancy restaurant or maybe more of a fast food restaurant for sure, today I could scan the QR code as I arrive at the table and basically order and get either a staff or maybe even a robot in some restaurants, bring the food to my table and, split the bill with my friends and all of these features over a mini program that sits on WeChat. So this is why I talk about WeChat being really a portal of services that enables my life, my offline life, through a digital enhancement or a digital tool that's super powerful. And I think everybody else that's doing social media outside of China should really get inspired by what happens in China, because I think otherwise they are risking to miss the boat. And that's basically what, as professionals, we expect to see and looking forward to see, because it's always interesting to see newcomers coming in with new ideas, with new innovations that really transform people's behaviors and lives.
So, as I understand, social commerce is pretty much a WeChat commerce in China. And would you have some best cases, some best practice to share on how to do e-commerce through WeChat? You talked about coupons. You talked about using the API of WeChat. You talked about the word of mouth. So word of mouth is very linked to KOL, I guess, key opinion leaders. As far as I understand, so far, it's very difficult to use the system of WeChat to do advertisement to get a good ROI on it, because the targeting is not as great and precise as Facebook. Actually, Facebook may have been better on this point. And so still a pending question for a lot of marketers, a lot of companies is, how do you sell on WeChat? Is it through the mini app you produce, you create? Is it through the interaction? Do you have best practices to share?
Yes, I think our approach is really starting from innovation, starting from users. What really are the problems to solve for users in a particular business context or in a particular life scenario, whether it's, for example, shopping, whether it's participating to events or to anything really, or booking a trip to a specific place. Like with a innovation agency do on native apps, iOS and Android, we come in and define and design those services, those interactions, using our processes and tools. And the promotion component is something we don't worry so much about, because I think in our business, we are in the business of expectation management, and we're really focused on delivering the best experience we can, so that we make the user happy and in consuming the digital destination. And we're less focused on the marketing side, which is actually a very different way of thinking. I always used to joke to my friends from the marketing agencies that they overhype, and me, I prefer to underhype, so that the experience can be better, consumers, and surprising, and perhaps generate more word of mouth and more adoption by the user.
I see. So how do you the users of the app you are creating, how do they find out for the app? Do they go from a search of WeChat, or do you actually leverage the existing client base of your clients, and you leverage then better interaction? And the way you are saying, you're improving interaction of existing database of clients, for this specific case, when you leverage existing database of clients and to interact better with them, would you have some cases to share with us about interaction which have been successful, or which you see some momentum through mini apps, through H5 you have developed, or progressive apps, as you said?
So let me come back to the example I was explaining earlier. For example, so one of our clients, Pizza Hut, for which we've delivered a whole WeChat experience. It's called a super WeChat app, just because it's an app that delivers all of the functionalities you would expect if you're going to interact with Pizza Hut digitally. So you can, of course, order your food, right, to be delivered at home. You can also order a table when you're on the way to the restaurant, find where's the closest restaurant, and you can pre-order the food and be able to validate your payment as you scan that QR code on the table. And that pre-ordering system, as well as on-table ordering system, is just really convenient. It makes people save time. It helps also share and view what my friends may be ordering as they scan also the QR code on the table, And it helps also to redeem specific coupons that can pre-purchase, which is huge business for Pizza Hut. So it's really transforming the way Pizza Hut interacts as well with customers and do business with them. And I even get to split the bill at the end and decide which, how much I'll basically spend onto this amount. Other apps that are very pure play e-commerce apps within WeChat, for example, one's called Pinduoduo, a very fast-growing marketplace within a mini program that itself sits within WeChat, right? If you follow me, are leveraging not only an enormous catalog of products with featured products pretty much every day, limited edition products that people really care about and may buy, but also a lot of very user-friendly and gamified functionality. So if I go to this app every day, I get a bit of free cash that I can spend on buying products. So it builds a lot of stickiness into it. Or if I share a specific product to friends who buy this product, right, then I will get rewards, I will get points, or some free cash as well. And so those kind of social commerce activities that are not just about posting on a social media product, but that are really about enabling social communities to buy together or to interact together around products and services and content and games even, is what WeChat has managed to achieve to do. Very interesting, very, very complex, very rich, very sophisticated. And I think the rest of the world is probably 10 years behind where China is today.
Talking about Pinduoduo, it's independent from WeChat, right?
Yes and no. It is an independent company and service from WeChat. It has actually an app and a mini program. And today we believe that from the numbers we see that most of their growth comes from their WeChat mini program by far. And that's because the service is thriving and developing through the social network and all the shareability features and also supported by the fact that Chinese people spend their life on WeChat. Recent numbers show that WeChat represents 34% of the mobile internet data network in China. And I think if we compare, for example, what Facebook means in Europe or in the US or in other parts of the world, in Southeast Asia, Facebook is nowhere near half of that. So Facebook is very important. It's really already impressive what Facebook has managed to do and what Facebook is elsewhere. But it's really a media where WeChat is a portal of services and a new operating system to build social services.
About mobile, the name of the company is Mobile Now Group, and you have created a company in 2009. I think the iPhone was created in 2007, right?
Yes.
So you were very early in naming your company mobile, when I guess it was pretty early when people were thinking that everything will go through mobile. Could you talk about how you saw it quite early, actually, that you would call your company Mobile Now with this direction on mobile?
Yeah, I mean, my personal story is after leaving school and university, both in France and in the UK, I landed somehow in Japan, as I mentioned earlier, Tokyo, of all cities, which is a fabulous city to be in still today, but it was a fabulous city to be in the end-90s, just because of many things, including mobile technologies. And I guess as I was looking for what to do in my life, this just hit me on the face. And I've, again, been a mobile professional, a mobile innovation professional for 17 years, working for large agencies, communication and innovation agencies around the world. First helping mobile operators, then helping handsets manufacturers or banks or FMCGs to start to look into it. And then today, we're basically seeing use for mobile for pretty much anything. Digital has become mobile, or mobile has become digital. When I started Mobile Now, it was really hard still to envision that people would use websites less, that they would be using mobile phones more. But it's really Apple and Android that made us believe that that was possible back then. And it's true, I started mobile now super early in China, just when iPhones were not really selling officially yet. I remember there was about 1 million iPhones in a country of 1.x billion people. So it was a very low penetration rate, and China Mobile was not ready yet to officially sell the iPhone. And we've been very lucky because year on year, iPhone and Android, Apple and Android developed amazing products and technologies. China became their number one market in the world in no time. They sold phones like pretty much like shopwrights, and Chinese people started to learn to use their phones and develop services that made sense for themselves. And they probably did that faster because they leapfrogged really from web. So I think that's the way I see how things, looking back, have developed. And I guess in a way I'm lucky, but in another way we saw it coming. And so that's why we call our company Mobile Now.
In such an industry where things are changing fast, I guess when in 2009 you still had a BlackBerry, you may have tried to work with Windows as well. Then you had Android and iOS taking over. Things are changing fast. You talk about Pinduoduo, you talk about WeChat, which is like, I guess, 6 years old. I mean, and the momentum is about 5 years, something like this, even if maybe older, actually, the creation of WeChat. So how do you keep being up to date? How do you keep knowing what is good to develop? You said that now you develop less native apps, you develop more mini programs, and also progressive websites and apps. Is it the clients who are actually coming with questions and then you actually react? Is it yourself, you do your own research and you investigate? How does it work? Maybe it's both of them. Could you explain it a bit? How do you manage this constant change?
Yes, sure. I mean, from my perspective, of course, clients and every stakeholders bring inputs into the spectrum of things. But it's really when you look at users and when you're user-centric, that you're able to catch those, I would say, those threads of opportunities and innovate on top of them very early stage. It's pretty easy. As an innovation agency, we have always to represent the users, our clients' customers, when we meet our clients, and let them realize really what is innovation meaning for their customers or their users. So this user centricism enables us to catch, for example, things like when WeChat explodes in terms of usage and opens up services to be able to then catch on them and develop the right strategies or the right destinations and the technologies and the platforms that comes behind that. Of course, that's one aspect. The other aspect is to be very agile from a technologies perspective. So we have a very strong focus on technology and a very strong team that when they see people using certain technologies, they're super curious. They go in there, they check the frameworks, check what can be done to keep it simple, and that's how we can then enable our designers and clients to deliver our services. So it starts really from users, from the user perspective. Clients are, of course, initiating these projects. And they themselves have to deliver a mandate first. They have to have a strategy that says, I want to be doing something great on mobile, or I want to do a fantastic platform to solve my clients' or my customers' problems. So that needs to come from them, but they are not really coming up with those strategies early stage. That generally happens when they have been convinced somehow that something is going on there. Let's get on board. We act earlier than that. We just follow the trends much earlier, and I think it's pretty typical of an innovation agency. Yeah.
Following what you are saying about the team that learning new ways of actually developing, you have offices in Changsha and Hangzhou.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a bit more? I think you are one of the only agencies I know that have offices in Changsha.
Yes, the reason why we want to spread a bit across various cities in China, and it's very modestly, it's just 3 cities. We're not really spreading across the zillion of cities and opportunities there are to tap into fantastic talent in China. But the reason why we are doing it is to there's 2 reasons really. And the first one is to access talent that's not always available in one city, and there's really different skill sets that are needed to deliver the kind of work that we do. And the second one is to ensure that we stay relevant to a large market like China. So a Chinese person from Shanghai and a Chinese person from Beijing, Hangzhou, Dalian, Changsha think very differently, act very differently, and live very differently. And it's very important for us to stay in touch with the different type of city, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 you have in the market. So talent access and relevance to the market are the key reasons. The reasons why we picked specifically Hangzhou and Changsha are pretty much led by our team. So the way it's happened on our side is we had a developer based in Shanghai who wanted to go back home in Changsha. And this was 8 years ago, and we entrusted him to build a team around him back home. And that team is grown over 8 years to be extremely skilled and bigger and stronger and delivers amazing work for us. Hangzhou is a slightly similar situation, but there's actually an absorption that happened. So we absorbed the team. We acquired a team in Hangzhou that have also an amazingly specific, interesting skill sets on agile development and back-end and front-end technology. So I don't want to bore you with very technical things, but those are the things we need to perform for our clients, and those are the real reasons why we open in those specific cities. Yeah.
How is it to work with 3 offices? I mean, you are 48, so it's not like 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work with? How is it to work remotely and with different offices? I guess it's adding complexity, but it's adding also some better life-work balance at the same time. How does it work?
So I think we can grow in many ways because we work in technologies and we work in design. So actually, the work we do scales very fast. So we do not need to grow our team's members to be 100, 200, 500 people. And actually, to me, this is a good thing because it makes my life a lot easier in terms of managing the human side of things, managing the teams and ensuring they are happy, thriving for the kind of work that they do at Mobile Now. You were talking about work-life balance. I think it's my biggest learning as an entrepreneur and as a leader to my team, that work-life balance is an essential thing for retention, for keeping people in my company. Perhaps because the type of people we hire are smart, skilled, and senior, and they themselves appreciate immensely being able to evolve and develop their art or their skills or their science in a place that helps them do that, but also where they can live their life and have a personal life and a great work-life balance. So I think this is something that we appreciate and that we get our clients to appreciate as well. And it's basically the way we look at it. So a lot less growth prospect for us from a number of people perspective, so that we can keep the right growth balance and ensure that we do things right. And it's quite important in our trade.
In order to manage those three offices and you're being in Shanghai, have you read things? There are a lot of books talking about working with different places remotely when you have your team spread over the world. I think about a book called Remote actually. Have you read things, or it has been quite normal for you to manage this way?
I think it comes with its challenges for sure, but somehow with year on year, we've built the process, the tools, and I think people also have built their own skill sets to communicate. So face-to-face communication and mobility, being able to meet as and when face-to-face and travel from one place to another helps, for example, a lot. I think this is very often something that people forget. It's very important to do that. And I think that the world is moving. I personally have the belief, it's a personal conviction, that the world is moving towards more and more mobility and remote work. I would love to be able to work from the beach, and just send emails and do video calls like here. I'll give you a fantastic background, and be able to be maybe smiling even more and be happier and deliver an even better work. So we're not quite there yet, but I think that's a great goal. It's a great goal to go for, right? To be able to offer this kind of work environment to your team. Yeah.
To continue on your team, you on your profile LinkedIn, it says you are co-founder, but I'm not seeing the other co-founders. How many of you are you, and how did you find your co-founders? How do you work together?
Yes, I think one of the most important thing for a business is to select, or for an entrepreneur, I should say, is to select your partners and work with partners that can help you grow and can help you basically deliver on your vision and your dream. And I've been very lucky on that perspective. So I've met my partner, my business partner, through work, actually, in one of those large agencies we used to work with. So I think we met in Singapore back in the day, and he, just like me, has spent even a few more years than me in Asia, about 20 plus years, and I've spent now about 17 years myself here. And we have the same outlook on life and on what a great agency should be. So what made us really click is by being fortunate to meet and interact in a previous business where we found each other and could work very well together. We decided that further down the line, we decided to start a business together. And that was just an amazing adventure to be able to do that with him. I think I don't know what advice to give actually to find the right partners. I think it's a matter of feeling it. It's a matter of trusting. It's a matter as well of complementarity of skill sets. So there's a rational side to it, but I would want to say first it's about trust and being able to see eye to eye and have empathy for each other. Because that needs to last a very long time. Building a business is not easy, and being able to, rely on each other and trust each other is essential.
How long have you known each other before partnering?
I think about probably 8 years. 8 years prior to starting Mobile now. Yeah.
Oh, 8 years you have known each other. Okay, I see. I think your partner is called Liam, right?
Liam. Yes, that's Liam Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw on his profile that he joined you 1 year after you started.
That's correct. So when I started, it wasn't a 50 people agency. It was much humbler. It was me plus one. And actually, I had another business partner I started with originally called Jerry, who was more focused on games. And when we started our business, we were having this dual business model, which is not necessarily the best thing to do, but it worked very well for us. So we built our own IP and mobile games very early on. We had some amazing successes from a download and usage perspective, and we started to work with brands as well, and deliver fantastic work for the likes of KFC and Coca-Cola and so on gaming, mobile gaming platforms. And when the market started to shift a little bit more towards transactional and e-commerce type of activities or service-based activities, this was less of the liking of my business partner. So my other business partner, so he decided to take his own path and focus on what really his vision is. And you have to respect that. You know, that's part of this trust and empathy I was talking about. You know, as partners, we're not really locked to each other. I think that concept is completely crazy. It would be a really sad situation if it's the case. I think you got to be your own man and keep your own dreams. And when they align, then it's fantastic. You can keep on going for a very long time. So perhaps the last advice to give on finding your partner would be to make sure that there's really a complete fit of goal and that you're ready to do the same thing together for a very long time, not just for the first few years.
And how easy is it? Because you said you changed. So Jerry joined you at the beginning, and you changed. Then he left. How easy is it to manage those changes? I feel as an entrepreneur as well that it's very difficult to have to partner with someone, then to unpartner with someone. How do you value? How do you sell the share? Do you give up on the share because you say you are not you have a vesting? What advice would you give to set up a good like shareholder agreement or agreement with at a very early stage?
Yes, I think a good agreement template early stage is necessary. So you know, and the principles are pretty much established in the market. So you know, there's standard practices, of course. So an active partner is rewarded in certain ways, and if a partner decides to split out, that often comes up with a bunch of conversations and discussions. But I think it happened pretty well in our case, and perhaps again been lucky there. But I think my other business partner was very lucky in his other professional ventures as well, and I think perhaps that helped. And he respected also, again, back to trust and respect. He respected what I wanted to do. I respected what he wanted to do, and that helped us to move forward. I think sometimes new entrepreneurs get a bit scared, a bit too scared about that. I think again, if you choose partners that have the right empathy and also the right business sense, you can function in ways that are smart and that work for both sides. Yeah, perhaps also change is a good thing, right? It's not always a bad thing to see change. So as an innovation agency, we embrace change, and as an individual living in China, which is super fast changing, I almost have no choice than to love change, or else I don't know, I should do something else.
One question about your history before you started Mobile Now. You are not a tech person. No. I saw your profile. You went to business school. How do, when you are not a tech person, how do you start, and how do you get enough knowledge without being a developer to start basically an agency which is based on tech and development? How do you feel about that? I feel there's a lot of changing concerns, questions about people who want to go into tech, but we don't have this background. Do you partner with someone who's from tech? Do you hire people? And then how do you hire good tech people when you don't even know how to check if they're good? I mean, do you have this challenge?
Of course. You know, I think you got through learnings and making mistakes to be able to then do the right thing and surround yourselves with the right people with complementary skill sets. There are processes to do that well, and those processes get developed over time. So at the beginning, when you start a business, things are super chaotic. You know, you managed to get a first employee. You convinced one person to join and share your dream and get maybe underpaid to actually help you in doing that. And then a second one, and then a third one. And things are really imperfect. But as the team continue to grow and as people by themselves decide to stay or go and develop those skill sets to work together, then things eventually work out pretty well. You need, I think the the chance or the luck that we've had is to be trusted by clients that give us a chance. And I think the reason why that happened is they didn't have many options to work with agencies like us in China back then and still today. I think that finding those type of skill sets and is not easy, and also today it's a very different story actually than when we started the business, because we've got so much experience and learnings and libraries of codes and not so much design and design research and not so much about users and mobility that we are we know what we do and we know our trade, but it is very hard to start. And I have to admit there's been a lot of very hard nights. There's been blood, tears, and but there's been also a lot of laughters and amazing times. So it's a life worth living because it's intense in the right sense of the term.
Talking about the future, and I think that we will end soon the interview. How do you see the next devices, the next platforms? We have talked about VR, about AR, and then now not many people are talking about it. We're talking about AI now. What will be the next platform you get ready for, as you were ready for mobile in 2009?
I think all of the technologies you've mentioned are still in their early stage, actually, in terms of maturity and what they can really do for people, and what they can and tools they can deliver for us. I'm not saying that AR isn't cool today, but I think it's going to get even more cool, and it will feel and be and serve different purposes in the future than it does today. Similarly with AI and with VR and with so many other technologies with mobile phones that will keep on getting better. But I think in general, the concept of mobility, it's a very long-term and forward-looking concept, in the sense that we're talking about devices, in the sense that I think devices are going to get even closer to us, to our bodies, and to maybe using, glasses, of course, implants, things that get under my skin. I'm absolutely not scared about any of these things, because I believe they'll help me live actually a better life, provided, of course, that the data and the data privacy is managed properly. But I'm an optimist. I think this world is very often doing the right things in those cases. So mobility to me means how an individual who's mobile, who's basically urban or not urban, actually, living their life, and I think the personal and personality aspect of mobility is very strong. For me, mobility means me. It means also now, instantly. It means also services that are super enabling. And perhaps what I just talked about sounded a bit philosophical, but I have no issue with the concept of our company's name and being focused on mobility and mobile, whether it's for apps or WeChat or mobile internet or other type of data-driven and service-driven stuff in the future.
It's very early, and we are still pretty much into mobile currently and the phone.
I think so too. I think mobility is bound to continue to surprise us year on year. I read a lot about this, and I of course experiment a lot about what can be done, and I just see the power of mobility as being just going beyond what could be done with books or with TV or with other type of media or concepts, and I think mobility is a style of living, And it's not just a mobile phone. And that's what I meant. I meant that more and more technologies and devices will help us. And we talk a lot about IoT, but we've seen also some successful, some less successful glasses-based technologies. I meet often people that already have implants and tell me about the functionalities that this brings to them. And this is just amazes me. And I know that so much more will happen than what's currently happening.
Thanks, Thomas, for your time. It's the third Thomas I'm interviewing, I think. People who listen to us, we think that most French people at home are named Thomas. Thomas Grenadi, Thomas Morisset, Thomas yourself. Thank you very much for your time. Very instructive. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Matthieu.